This is Dave Hurwitz at ClassicsToday.com. As some of you may know, this is a Beethoven year, the 250th anniversary of the great man's birth. And that means it's the absolute perfect time to talk about something else. In this case, Mendelssohn. We're going to be doing a lot of Beethoven, and we're going to be inundated with Beethoven. So I'd like to take this opportunity to change the subject before the inevitable floodgates open. Now, I have to get the shameless plug out of the way. I've just published a book, Listening to Mendelssohn, for Amadeus Press. That's part of their owner's manual series that I've been writing over the years. And in order to prepare and write the book, I spent an awful lot of time listening to just about everything I could get my hands on by Mendelssohn. And I approached it with a certain degree of trepidation because, Mendelssohn's reputation has never been all that high in serious musical circles, although it's getting better. Traditionally, he's regarded as sort of a proto-romantic, quasi-Victorian, somewhat effete, fussy composer of, nice fairy music, like A Midsummer Night's Dream, that kind of stuff, and the Wedding March, and also of saccharine Victorian oratorios like Elijah and St. Paul. But the fact of the matter is, he was an absolutely wonderful composer. People who already love him will say, yeah, you're just finding that out. And I guess, that's true too, because we all live on received opinion to some extent, don't we? But listening to the entirety of his output really opened my eyes to what a great composer he was. And so I want to talk to you about some recordings that have come out and about his music a little bit more generally, and see if I can pique your interest. This thing that I held up at the beginning, this is a Hensler Classics 56 CD Mendelssohn box. Of course, it doesn't have everything that he wrote, but it has a good deal of it. And a lot of it's licensed from other labels, for example, like Naxos or from German labels, Kurt Masur and the Gewandhaus are on there from Eurodisc or whatever. But, the reality is that there's very little Mendelssohn that isn't good. He was the greatest genius since Mozart. It's that simple. His development was very different because his knowledge of musical history was very different. He was rigorously trained in music from Bach onwards by the conservative German Kapellmeister Zelter, whose letter introducing him to Goethe, this is really kind of weird, introduced him as an uncircumcised Jew, which not only tells you something about Zelter, but of just about everything you need to know about the place of Jews in German society in the early 19th century. But other than learning the state of Mendelssohn's genitalia, Zelter was full of praise about what a genius the boy was. And indeed, he really, really was. Now, one of the pieces that really caught my fancy initially was the Piano Quartet No. 2. Mendelssohn's first published pieces were these early piano quartets, and No. 2 was dedicated to Zelter. And I liked it so much, I turned it into a ringtone, which I think I will play for you right now, because here it is on my iPhone. Just listen to this. Isn't that catchy? It's terrific, isn't it? The nifty thing about it is that it's actually a witty and amusing movement in a minor key, and that doesn't happen very often. And it says something about Mendelssohn's range and his ability to create original musical material, that he could do something like that at the age of 12, which is beyond depressing. Let's not kid ourselves. The Hensler box contains a lot of music that you probably won't be interested in. There's many discs of for example, sacred music. And Mendelssohn's sacred music is a controversial subject because, unlike, for example, Haydn's, which he regarded as too cheerful, non-liturgical, his is very serious. And it was sort of seen as typical Victorian religiosity, but it's also very beautiful if you're into that sort of thing. You also get the oratorios sung in German, but you do get the complete symphonies and string symphonies in Thomas Fye's very, very exciting period instrument influenced performances. It's great stuff. The chamber music, though, is really where Mendelssohn is at. I mean, if you know the string quartets, most people know the last quartet, the one he wrote in memory of his sister, number 6, which is expressionistically terrifying. But they're magnificent pieces. The first two are among the most sophisticated examples of cyclical form we have in the entire 19th century, and successful examples. The piano trios are brilliant. The cello sonatas are great. I mean, cello sonatas usually sound kind of like, you've got a cello, you've got a piano, and never the twain shall meet. Mendelssohn's meet. They're really, really, really good. The string quintets are beautiful. If you like chamber music, Mendelssohn's chamber music is terribly underrated and tremendously neglected and really, really good. In addition to the piano quartets, the example of which I just showed you. If you're looking for, a set of symphonies, my favorite one, just for your information, is this one. This is Christoph Dochnani with the Vienna Philharmonic. You get the symphonies and a lot of overtures, and you also get the Erste Walpurgisnacht, a fabulous 30-minute long cantata about Christians versus pagans, and the pagans actually win. And it's really a beautiful piece based on some of the same melodic material as the Scottish Symphony. So if you like the Scottish Symphony, then you'll probably like the Erste Walpurgisnacht. And if you want to get a nice box that has sort of all of the major orchestral works, except for the overtures, there's this thing on BIS, which gives you all of the symphonies with Andrew Litton and the Bergen Philharmonic, all of the string symphonies with Lev Marquez and the Amsterdam Sinfonietta, and all of the concertos. And there are a lot more than you think. I mean, there's 2 piano concertos, there's the violin concerto we know and love, but then there are the early concertos. There are the 2 double piano concertos. There's the concerto for piano, violin, an early violin concerto, an early piano concerto. They may not be mature, but they're beautifully crafted, tuneful, interesting pieces that really, there isn't a dull moment in most of this music. So in addition to getting, dipping into the chamber works and the orchestral music, there's also a good bit of piano music that gets neglected. And the signal piece in the Mendelssohn piano works is the 6 preludes and fugues. The first of which is one of the great piano pieces in the entire Romantic era, in that sort of neo-Baroque, back to Bach style. It's absolutely wonderful. And of course, everyone knows the songs without words, which are a lot better than the spring song. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with the spring song, but there's a lot of really good music in there too. So if you're tired of Beethoven during this Beethoven year, or looking for a change of pace, and you want to hear major music by a truly major composer that's a lot of which is completely neglected, give Mendelssohn some consideration. You won't be sorry, I promise you. Thank you, and keep on listening.